Hi, I'm Hannah Robinson, and I'm going to be a sophomore at Penn State main campus.
Hi, Hannah. Okay, let's get started. In one word or one sentence, state the most significant experience, idea, term, or question encountered in this course. Explain why it is so meaningful to you. What did it help you to understand better? How did it help you to perceive differently, dynamically, yourself, others, and the context?
The phrase I would use to describe an important experience that I had participating in the Philadelphia Urban Seminar would be impactful learning in an urban classroom. This phrase describes the time I spent in an urban elementary school and how being active in that environment had an intense influence over my perspective on how to be an effective teacher in that setting. This was meaningful to me because it was the first time that I got to shadow a teacher and learn lessons from her directly, but also get to be an integral part of the classroom interacting with the students. Being in the classroom helped me to understand how flexibility, approachability, listening, and structure are vital to a healthy school atmosphere. I observed my mentor teacher and another teacher in the building demonstrate these qualities, and to see most of the students I observed be responsive to their techniques made me pay close attention to how exactly they went about this. This powerful experience also helped me clear my mind of some biases I previously held and to see others and the environment in a different light. Going into the school, I was anxious and concerned that the teachers in this elementary school would not hold a high concern for student welfare and the students would not have access to a lot of materials that would aid their schooling. After spending the 2 weeks in the classroom, I began to understand that it was wrong of me to make such judgments, and I went about finding out what the students have access to. I learned that the school kept the learning support, behavior support, and the autistic support classes around in efforts to help their students. I also learned a lot about how to keep my own emotions in check and to not be so quick to make assumptions about others. I was placed in the autistic support classroom with kindergartners and first graders, where I immediately thought I would not be able to handle the class. I learned all about each individual student and even strategies to make their learning experience easier on them. The time I spent with them even made me switch my minor to special education. I feel that being in the classroom had a profound effect on me as an individual and as a future teacher. I cannot wait to implement what I have learned in my daily life along with my future classroom.
What has this course taught you about race and racism, gender, sexism, and/or disability, ableism? Please be specific.
This course taught me a lot about race, racism, gender, sexism, and disabilities and ableism. Reading the articles that were presented to us that were written in modern formats, such as the New York Times and even blogs, helped me to understand how prevalent the issues of racism, sexism, and ableism are in today's society. I also began to understand the white supremacist patriarchy and how powerful that social structure is in shaping our minds from birth. I learned how these issues permeate beyond large protests and politics, but injustice related to these conceptions happen very often largely in subtle ways. I thought of my own identity, being a white, able-bodied woman, and what advantages this gives me and what this limits me to because of the white supremacist patriarchy. The course taught me that there are things I can personally do to combat the patriarchy, such as being aware and admitting to my own actions, cultivating belief, listening, networking, and more. I also learned about the costs and gains of doing some of the above. To me, the gains definitely outweigh the costs because I would rather lose time, energy, and blissful ignorance to gain perspective and knowing that I am doing everything I personally can to help shape the future in a positive way and continue to make a difference.
What has this course taught you about literacy based, critical, community collaborations like reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and their impact on teacher teaching and learning?
This course has actively shown me how important community collaborations are and how much of an impact they have on teacher teaching and learning. I learned that it helped me to think more critically, and working with my peers also helped me to understand what we were discussing on another level. I think having the small groups were important because it gave each student a chance to share their thoughts in a comfortable setting. It was interesting to hear my peers' opinions, which helped give me clarity on what I personally believe in. Once I understood my own thoughts, I was more motivated to work on developing a deeper level of critical consciousness. I thought it was important to have classes dedicated to looking at text because seeing important messages written in various formats validated the message to me. I got to look closely at the opinions of others who have done research on the topics we were discussing. I also could refer back to what the authors had stated and share with others who were reading the same articles who had different views than I did. This to me is very valuable for teaching teachers because it stresses community, pushes an individual to think about what exactly they say and how their words may be perceived, along with demonstrating how significant it is to explore others' ideas and to keep an open mind. These are all valuable lessons because they can apply directly to the classroom. Students can be influenced heavily by what their teacher is telling them in class. It will be more beneficial for the student if the teacher keeps an open mind, understands the value in community, and thinks critically about what they are saying to their own students.
And lastly, how have the 4 agreements helped you to develop a critical consciousness about self, others, and context? Provide at least one example.
The 4 agreements have played a key role in helping me to develop a critical consciousness about myself, others, and the context in which I find myself being a part of. These 4 agreements are so essential to daily life, not just applying to teaching, but to being an individual who is aware of their own actions and the actions of others. Being impeccable with my word is something I constantly think about, and with everything I say, I try to be sinless with my words. I notice how others might not be impeccable with their word when they say certain things, especially when I notice someone saying, "I just have a bad kid." Applying another agreement, I try very hard now after this course to not make assumptions about others and certain environments that lead to judgments. For me, this was something I never thought I did, but after learning about the 4 agreements, it came to my knowledge that I was in fact making assumptions about others. Now I try to find more about the situation and the individuals involved and use the statement, "I wonder," that leaves room for doubt and does not place any labels. I spent a lot of time thinking of another agreement, not taking anything personally, which I struggled with at first, but I have a better understanding of having gone through the experience of the Philadelphia Urban Seminar. When a child in my practicum site I was assigned to had an episode of behavior that I was not accustomed to, I got pretty emotional about it, and it took me a full evening to process what had happened earlier that day. It was the class time and conversations with my teacher that helped me to not take the situation personally. The class time taught me about making observations and interpretations, which we discussed about using the 2 to develop critical consciousness instead of making judgments. This was a valuable lesson for me and something I will always remember, especially when I get to be a teacher. Not taking things personally is a statement that my mentor teacher and another teacher in the building stressed to me as a word of advice and shared their own personal stories where that applied. Always trying my best, the last agreement, is another statement that I plan to live by for the rest of my life. I know that sometimes I can be very critical of myself, but as long as I am putting forth my best effort and staying aware that my best one day does not mean the same for the next day, then I know I will be putting myself in the best position to achieve success for myself, promoting a healthy environment for the people around me, and staying open-minded.